in the interim between these videos, I made a stone point that I want the obsidian point to look like. I find it easier to work in stone when I want an overall shape, so I came up with this. This is what I want the obsidian point to look like. This is the first one. Let's see. It's still difficult to see. Try changing some colors in the background. Anyway, you can see the difference in the bases, hopefully. And in doing this, I noticed that obsidian seems to be lighter than stone. I need to check that, but I think the obsidian is lighter than stone, but we'll see. I did make another obsidian point off camera, which is closer to the stone point in shape. But it started off kind of curved, and I had to, thin it down enough to be straight, and it ended up being too thin. And it's a little bit shorter too. I had plenty to work with, but the flake that this came from was kind of curved. I had plenty to work with as far as length, but it had some curvature in it, so it ended up being thin. Now, the target weight was somewhere between 125 and 150 grains, which is typical for arrowheads for hunting. Let's see. The stone point it goes between 124 and 126, so 125 for this one. And the obsidian one that's pretty close in size is 118. Which is not that far from 125, but it isn't the same. So I'm gonna make a match set of 4 as close as possible. So, but I'll still send off these 2 in addition to the match set of 4. But I'm getting closer with each time I do one. Now this is from the previous video, this biface, and you can see there's quite a bit of difference in the starting piece and the final piece. When you start with something large like this, especially with obsidian, it's very handy, because if you make a mistake and remove too much, which is extremely easy to do, you've got plenty to work with. If you start with a flake that's about this size and you knock off all the sharp edges and remove the bulb of percussion, you've got something that's already very similar in size, and you have to be very careful not to take off anything extra from the tip or the base, which can be done, but it's very difficult with obsidian. Alright, this one has a nice pattern. This one has a nice pattern to it, or in the obsidian itself. It's pretty cool. This one did have some red in the base here, but I napped it off trying to get it thin. Some of these chunks, some of these spalls do have red in them. You can see it there. And it's that midnight lace or whatever it's called, with the clear and the black. I guess if it just has clear and black, it's called midnight lace, but if it has some of the red, it's triple flow. Right? I'm not sure. Anyway, it naps really well. So I'll try to get, well, I'm going to use the stone point as the pattern. See how that goes. This is actually raw stone, and I thought it was heat treated when I started, and I had to use a lot of force. So hopefully when I switch back now to Obsidian, it won't be difficult. So the order that I went in, I made that one first, and then I worked on this one, and then I made this one, and I said I'm having some trouble, so I just made a stone pattern. And now I got to go back to Obsidian. I'm just knocking off the really thin areas to see what I've got for an edge. And when you do that, it automatically exposes some good opportunities for platforms. And the way I nap, I just nap opportunistically. Sometimes I'll create a specific platform, like if it doesn't look good. This area in here, between my fingers, that looks like a good platform right now, or semi-good, but it's not. I'll have to, you know, chip downward and bevel it so that it has a smooth angle to it, and then I'll grind it slightly, and then hit that. That's a good area to hit because there's a big mass right here. Anyway, I'll look around. Sometimes I just go off to the side of a platform like that and just hit the side of it, and then hit the other side, and don't even worry about hitting directly on that thick area. Just go and kind of cheat. This is kind of large for what I need, but I gave away my other thinner flaker. And I'm also in the process, like I said, of making new flakers, so I should have one pretty soon. An appropriate size one. That one was an overshot, you see that? This way it's good to start with, you know, something larger. It just took off a pretty good chunk off the other side. Yeah, on that platform area I was discussing earlier, I did go to the side and just take that off. The flake expands out or fans out quickly, so it just fanned out and took off that area. or most of it. So I didn't even need to hit on that. I just hit off the side. Yeah, you definitely need to back off quite a bit on the force. Don't need as much force with Obsidian as I do with stone. Not nearly as much. Someone also asked me how to send long flakes in from the base. One of the comments, without snapping the whole thing. The trick is keep it thin on the ends and make it thick in the middle. That way it won't snap in the middle. Now if you're working a slab, you can't do that. So on a slab, I would flake first the ends, or at least the tip. Thin it down first before you make any long flutes or thinning flakes from the base. It's hard to do a thinning flake from the base if you thin the base first, so you might want to leave it a little bit thicker, or just do a little bit of a base preparation on the slab. I'll do some slabs, I guess. I think the question was asked because some guys are making Clovis style points from slabs. I guess, I don't know. Now if you're talking about just Obsidian, how not to break Obsidian, just keep it thick in the middle. That's the best advice I can give for that. Now this one here, see, it's curved, it's dished out here. So the blade is curving downward. I've got to remove mass from here underneath, and I'll probably lose some off the tip because it'll get real thin. So I'll do that first and then I'll work on the base. I do need to thin the base down too. So I'll show you how I run thinning flakes on this one here. I still have quite a bit of room to work with. Now when I was first starting flint knapping, One of the hardest things for me to do was to judge how much thickness I need at every stage in order to get good thinning passes and still have enough for the subsequent thinning passes until they reach the final stage. Like when you get to the final stage, you want some nice, large flakes. Well, some guys like these ribbon flakes. I like large flat flakes when I finish out. I don't like, well, I probably would if I could do it. But I don't usually put in a lot of little flakes. I like to have large finish up. Now, in the beginning, I couldn't figure out how thick or thin I needed to be to get in a position where to do those finished flakes that were large. I guess the easiest way to do it would be just to measure yourself periodically. Measure the workpiece periodically, and I guess it would be 5-to-1 width to thickness ratio would be a good rule of thumb. Just keep that throughout the whole process. This caliper is messing up on me. I might need a new battery. Let me see. Anyway, I'll take a measurement and give you an idea of the width to thickness ratio. Three-eighths. It's about 3/8. One and 3/4, so whatever that is. Three-eighths into 1 3/4, and keep the same with the thickness ratio, 1 3/4 to 3/8. Let's see. I can't do it in my head. Anyway, let me just pin this down at the tip before I run out of time. Okay, so I think it's 6 to 1. When I measured it 3/8 and 1 3/4, I think that's 6 to 1 width to thickness ratio. So just keep it at 6 to 1. Did I say 5 to 1 earlier? I would keep it somewhere between 5 to 1 to 6 to 1. And you can measure as you go and see where you're at. I think a lot of new guys are right around 4 to 1. Which is fine too. I mean, you can make thick points. I tell guys it's okay to make thick points in the beginning. But you don't want to go much thicker than 4 to 1. The real ones average between 4 to 1 and let me see, the average of real ones, it depends on what part of the country you're in. I think in the east they tend to be thicker than the west. In the west, I'm pretty sure the average is about 5 to 1 to 6 to 1, but they can get pretty thin. You know, 8 or 9 to 1 is found a lot. The Noel Justice books will have dimensions of the artifacts in the back of the book, so you can see, or you can calculate these width to thickness ratios. And I need to look at that too, so I don't give out wrong information. So I'm just guessing right now. Don't take my word for it. There's some thin points in the east too, don't get me wrong. Especially around the Cahokia area. That whole central Mississippian culture influence. And Mississippian as far as the Mississippi River, not the time period. There's a lot of points made very thin in the central part of the U.S. East Coast, it's hard to find good materials, so it's hard to get real thin points made out of quartzite or quartz, for example. So they tended to be thicker because that was the only thing they had. That one didn't sound too good. It almost started to dive in. I was trying to prepare a nice smooth surface for some flakes to go up. I can probably still do it, but I just weakened it. Let me try to do a large flake from the other side to clean that up. Yeah, Overshot that one. Still have room. Again, it's the transition between the stone and the obsidian. I hit too hard, overshot. And it looks like it leaves a nice edge to work with on the other side, but you still have to dull it. It's in between being sharp and dull. I mean, it's not sharp enough to use as the final edge, and it's not dull enough for using for platforms. This overshot edge, even though it looks kind of nice, it's not really useful. One thing good about overshots is it tends to flatten the piece, and I think that's where they were used, or I think that's why for example, the Clovis snappers didn't mind the overshots very, there's a lot of examples of overshooting in Clovis because they liked flat pieces, ones with no central ridge. You see sometimes a central ridge at the tip of the Clovis, but never the halfway mark down. It's always flattened or fluted, flattened by flakes across or fluted. So before I run out of time here, I'm going to do a long flake, and hopefully it won't break. Okay. And all it is making sure you have plenty of mass in the middle. That's what I do. Of course, if you got too much mass in the middle, it'll dive. A lot of guys say, I had a lot of mass in the middle, but when I did the flute flake, it dived right under the mass. So what good does it do? Well, you have to kind of strike a balance. You have to have a very smooth contour. I mean, not too much mass in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to do a flake here. And I don't support it very much. I could put my finger here, I guess, and then it would drive it a little bit further. I could try that. But there's really not much support. I mean, I'm not holding it rigidly. Sometimes I used to hold the whole piece really rigid this way so there would be no bending. But nowadays, I don't try for very long flutes, so I just hold it any old way without creating any bending. I crushed the platform on that one. I can go over a little bit and hit one off there. And it did try to dive in. I may have some trouble with that. It did try to dive in right there. You see how it cracked a little bit toward the edge here too. So to remedy that, I just needed to not hit it as hard. Like I said, I was working with stone earlier, just before this, so my strikes were a little bit too hard. All I had to do was just not strike it as hard. Now hopefully I can salvage this for an arrowhead for one of these, but if not, that's okay. I've got plenty of pieces. Alright, I think my time's up on this video. I'm going to try to finish this on the next one, or on the next series of videos.